Welcome to Customer Service Academy Radio with author and customer experience expert Tony Johnson. Tony will share his vision for successful customer service, leadership, and business excellence, and speak to some of the most impactful leaders in business today. And now, here's Tony Johnson.
Hello everybody, Customer Service Academy is on the air. I'm Tony Johnson, your customer experience speaker, consultant, and trainer. Today's episode coming to you courtesy of Ignite Your Service Training and Consulting and 4XI Global Consulting and Solutions. Truly better together. Folks, I'm going to be hosting the most amazing destination trainings. We're going to be hosting them in Tampa, in Lakeland, in Orlando, and yes, even Las Vegas. So head on over to igniteyourservice.com/summits to learn more about leadership development, customer experience, and business growth coming to your community today. Register to sign up for updates when the dates become available. That's igniteyourservice.com/summits. Check it out today. So I have been on the road like a maniac, probably, as referenced and shown by having a little bit of gap in podcasts here. So apologies to you, my loyal audience, for that. But think about this. As you're traveling, do you ever notice the hiccups along the way, the service miscues, the things that really bum you out? And have you really thought about how you can apply those back into your business? It is the bane of my existence as I travel around, drives my wife nuts. But I continue to see these kind of things out there, and I always like to share them because I think there's always a kernel or a nugget of learning inside of these things. So I was on the road, and I was helping run a workshop. I love facilitating workshops, helping folks get to the finish line, because with all the AI out there, think about this, with all the AI out there right now, there's so many big ideas. Everyone's got great ideas. That's the one cool thing about AI is you can get in there and sort of think about some stuff, ideate some things, maybe get a little bit of research done. Be careful though, because if you've noticed, there's been a couple of companies out there that have gotten burned with using AI and the information wasn't accurate, and they're doing some rebates and refunds right now. So make sure you're double checking the really important stuff. But with all that said, there's a lot of organizations out there that have, again, tremendous ideas, but how to mobilize them still kind of eludes them. So if you need help with that, reach out, or if you and your organization have that skill, leverage that. Because the ability to bring people together, to find consensus, to get stuff done, a little bit of GSD, if you will, that is still a really important skill that folks are going to need. So even as AI grows, even as there's these opportunities to streamline organizations, to make them flatter and more efficient, there's still going to be that need for someone to actually make sure things get done and that there's accountability. So be that person. It's a great place to be. So as I'm out traveling around this past week hosting some workshops, it was amazing to me to stay at a property that bills itself as quote unquote historic. So it's in a really nice part of downtown Charleston. It's a lovely hotel from the outside. It looks really good online. It's with a brand that I know and trust. I'm not going to name them because I hate to do that kind of thing. But when you think about the idea of historic, I think grand, I think opulent, I think kind of cool, maybe a little quirky. This was really code for run down and old. So, I'll give you some examples. Not great shower pressure. And I'm not talking just not the shower pressure we all know and love, here in the U.S. especially. But, it was really low. I would call it in some cases a dribble or a drab, right? There wasn't a lot of pressure there. I could barely get the shampoo out of my hair. That's always my indicator if the shower pressure is really bad because my hair is not all that long. And it was old. It was not old in a cool historic way. It was old in that there are rust spots behind the toilet, right? It was old in the sense that the carpet wasn't very new. It was old in the sense that the elevators were kind of janky and didn't work really well. It was old in the sense that there wasn't a bar or restaurant in the hotel, and that was inconvenient, although there was some very nice stuff around the area. It was old in the way that there weren't a lot of outlets in the room. It was just run down. It can be historic, and it can even look old and antique, but that doesn't mean that it has to be dirty, that it has to be run down, that it has to not work very well, that the hot water isn't very hot is another great example. So when I asked about that, they did say, "Oh, it's a historic hotel, sir." And I thought, well, that's really just code for, it's run down and old and you're trying to get an extra $50 a night. The other thing I noticed is rental cars. Now, this is something that has always been the bane. I've mentioned it on this show before. But when you think about rental cars as a rule, if you ever go to the checkout counter, now often there are airports I fly into because I'm a rewards member with a bunch of different car rental companies. And so often I will show up there will be a name on a big board in a parking space, and I've already checked in and grabbed my car through the app, along the way, or they just assigned it because I booked it. But by the time I get there, I can get right to my car, get in, go to the exit, show my ID, and I'm done. There are some occasions, and this past week was one of them, where I get there and my car's not ready yet. Or in some of the smaller airports, you still have to go get the keys from them because there's no checkout process. It's just in a small lot. There's no gate. So you have to get the keys and head out to your car that way. I will tell you, the rental car process is one of the most broken processes I think I have ever seen. It is slow. It is cumbersome. The number of keystrokes just to say, yes, I have this guy's ID. Yes, he is going to take this car. And yes, it's in spot A25. Here you go. That, in my opinion, is like a 3-minute transaction. Maybe 4 if you're going to have some pleasantries in there, right? But it's one of those things where it should not be a 10-minute transaction, a 15-minute transaction for them to put in the information, give you your keys, and get you on your way. So I feel like that is a really outdated process and something that really needs to be looked at, because there has to be ways to streamline that, even if you have to go to the counter. And then on a positive note, shout out to the Lakeland Chamber of Commerce. As you know, I am a huge fan, and I was so honored because I was asked to join their board this past year. So I'm on the board of directors for the Lakeland Chamber of Commerce now, just getting started. I've just been like 3 or 4 months now I've been on, so really exciting to start making a difference. And I attended their annual planning retreat a couple weeks ago, and it was outstanding. Amy Wiggins, the CEO of the chamber, is just outstanding. And I will tell you, it was a great week. It was a lot of great planning. And you want to talk about a chamber that is really getting it done. They are prioritizing things that absolutely matter. They are really all about strong businesses. They're about preparing talent for the future. And they are about engaged leaders in the community. And I will tell you, I cannot think about anything more important to a great community than that kind of engagement. The other thing that they continually talk about is how all of this leads to a prosperous community. Because think about it, that's what chambers do. Chambers are great connectors. Chambers are great enablers. And in this case, the chambers of commerce, both in Orlando and the state chamber in Florida, and also the U.S. chamber, along with my really great Lakeland chamber here locally, they do an amazing job of thinking about what the future of work has to look like and trying to meet upskilling and workplace needs for what's coming into the future. Are the teams on the ground going to be ready for the needs of the future when it comes to delivering excellence in the community and for customers and for business in general? So shout out to them. Cannot say enough good stuff. So folks, you know that I love a good theme, and it is Halloween. So it's time for the Ghosts and Goblins and CX Cautionary Tales. As I'm recording this, just a couple weeks out from Halloween, and it's a great time to talk about haunted hospitality and really understanding if your customer experience is a horror show. So let's talk about that, because we have all had experiences that are kind of cold or confusing or frustrating, and they probably make a monster scream that they're so bad. So we need to exercise these service demons, and I think together we can really, really do that. So let's pull back the curtain and let's see what's hiding behind this kind of scary hospitality. So the first one I want to talk about, and these are some themes, right? Some themes and motifs that I'm seeing in bad service out there. So let's try to make it a little less scary. The ghosted guest. So I bet you have all seen this. You've probably experienced this. It's the type of ghost story that nobody likes, right? When guests arrive, they're not acknowledged. There's no hello. There's no eye contact. The body language is terrible. The person just gives you kind of that stare of, I don't care. I don't know what to do. I see this a lot in the airports, right? Just disengaged team members hoping somebody wanders in, and if they do, they have no idea what to do about it. And there's no personalized service there. So when you think about that, how do you stop ghosting your guests? Well, first of all, you make sure you've got those steps of service in place, but also you personalize that service. You understand people's names, you build connection, you recognize them as they come in quickly with that acknowledgement. And that is a really important thing. So just think about the fact that if you are hearing about this in your surveys, if you're not hearing about these personalized experiences, if you're not hearing that your team is engaging, if you're not hearing this is a great welcome, time to really do some work on that, because hospitality is built on those human connections. So you don't need to know people's full story, right? You don't got to know their entire life story, but you can get to know them just a little bit and make them feel seen, heard, and valued. So use names, train your team to make that great eye contact, just to say hello and how are you, to get their feedback. And just remember, that's oxygen for the guest experience. It's fantastic. So don't ghost those guests. The second one is kind of aligned on the same path. It's the zombie team. We have all seen them, and they're not just reserved for this time of year when zombies are roaming free on the plains. Zombie teams are disengaged. They are slow, they avoid guests, they do the bare minimum. They are the folks you see on the phone as opposed to talking to their guests and trying to help them. This is often a victim of two different things, right? This is often a problem that comes from either poor leadership, poor selection, or poor development. So you've got to make sure that you are selecting for folks that have that heart for service, that really like people. And you can test for that in interviews by asking them about ways they've worked with people. You can kind of get their general vibe when they talk about people. And you can really make sure you're weeding out those people who say, that's not my job, that's not my problem, I'm going to do the bare minimum. Again, we want folks that are going to be there and do the job at hand and find little ways to go above and beyond when it matters. So just know your team is going to respect that empowerment. If you get the right people on the ground, they're going to respect that autonomy, and they're going to love knowing exactly what is expected of them. So make sure that you're really, really letting them know exactly what great service looks like, what your expectation is, and how you're going to measure it, and then recognize and celebrate it. Wake them up a little bit with that inspiration and that celebration, and don't forget about ongoing development, because when folks see a path to growth, when folks see a path to development, they love that. When you're investing in them, both in time and training, when you're getting to know them beyond the daily work, this is the way that you inspire them to not be zombies, but to be those service champions. Number 3, the haunted processes. That sounds like it should be a movie, right? Or at least a web series. But I would tell you, this comes back to the rental car thing I said earlier. When you think about the processes that drive business results, and if you think about what experience means, right? Safety, hospitality, quality, simplicity, and then this idea of connectivity and community. So when you build those in, the whole idea of simplicity is about ease of use, is about protecting speed of service, is about removing complications and frictions. All of that matters. So if you think about those old haunted mansions in all the movies where everything creaks and there's cobwebs and nothing seems to work, or the hotel I stayed at, maybe it was haunted, but those processes that you've got in your organization are the drivers, and you don't want them to be awful for your guests. So think about this. Have you taken a walk through your business? Have you tried your process of ordering? Have you been on your website? Have you tried to go through a mock way of doing business with yourself? Because you will probably find there are overcomplicated systems. There are repetitive things guests don't need to do or customers don't need to do. There are things that don't make any sense, or things that make your life easier but the customer's life more complicated. I think about healthcare here. Healthcare, I'm looking at you. If you have to go into a doctor's office and you've already filled out the form before, or you checked in online and went through the whole check sheet, and somebody hands you a clipboard again to fill out the same stuff because nothing connects, that's a broken process. And everyone's wondering, what is going on here? If they can't even collect my data right and I have to keep redoing all of this, I don't have a lot of faith in the healthcare I'm about to get. So just know that that's a great way to sand off some rough edges, because guests should need a map, they should need a prayer, they should need a magic word to get what they need from you, because it's about making it just as simple as possible, the path of least resistance. And really, when all things are equal, customers will do what's easier. So don't let your competition lure your customers away because they're easier to do business with. Simplify, automate, and remove what doesn't work, and sand off those rough edges. And that starts by taking a hard look at your processes within your organization. Next, the idea of cursed consistency. Now, every good horror movie has one thing in common. There's a little bit of unpredictability, although not often in today's horror movies, but the old ones used to have a little bit of twist. I think about Scream and The Sixth Sense and some of those that had kind of those unpredictable natures. But in hospitality, really, if you think about it, unpredictability isn't thrilling. It's kind of terrifying. It's not something you want inside of your organization. So, think about that. Nothing kills customer trust faster than inconsistency. It's all about coming in and, the guest gets a great experience one time. They get warmth and they get excellence and everything is great. And the next day it's indifference. It's chaos. The quality's not there. The wait times are long and things aren't very good. So Chick-fil-A is a great example here, and shout out to Chick-fil-A. They are a wonderful brand. They are consistent. They are well known. They are so friendly, and really a great thank you to them, because when I was building all of this stuff way back when, Chick-fil-A was so kind to invite me to Atlanta, spend a week with them, understanding their processes, interviewing some of their leaders, and they were so thoughtful and helpful along the way. So they're a big part of my success, because they were so open when I went to interview them for the first book I wrote, for the program I was developing, and just thanks for the partnership there. But the one thing they do really well, as I said, is this idea of consistency. When you go to a Chick-fil-A drive-thru, they do a fantastic job of delivering the same chicken sandwich every single time and the same experience right down to the my pleasure. Now, does Chick-fil-A have the best chicken sandwich on the market right now? You could make a case they do. You could make a case there are some that are better, right? So I love the Popeyes chicken sandwich, the KFC chicken sandwich. There are a lot of really good ones out there. The Raising Cane chicken sandwich, all delicious. Now, the one thing I will tell you is with some other brands, they may have a better core chicken sandwich on their best day. But I like to measure people against what's the worst day look like. And Chick-fil-A's worst day is 5 heads above most people's best day. I will tell you that. Their best day is amazing. Even their worst day is something that gets over on the competition there. So they are delivering, even on a bad day, they may miss on my pleasure, but they're not going to miss the sauce, and the chicken sandwich is still going to be the same. The drive-thru may take a little bit longer. They may not get around to filling your drink, right? Those little things happen, but you know what? The core that is Chick-fil-A, it is there every single time, and that chicken sandwich comes out the same every single time. So they do a pretty darn good job of protecting that consistency. Is it sometimes a little hotter, sometimes a little crispier, sometimes a little fresher? Absolutely. But the spread on great day to bad day, it is not that big. It's a very small spread, which is what you want. Some of these other chicken chains, you go in, the sandwich on their best day is better than Chick-fil-A's, but you don't get their best day every day. Often you get their medium day or their worst day, and that is nowhere as good a chicken sandwich. So that consistency piece is what drives me often into the Chick-fil-A drive-thru. Or if I'm traveling, I might go to that window. Because if I'm looking at 5 fast food restaurants or 5 places I can get something to eat, Chick-fil-A always says to me, you're going to be safe. I'm going to get a pretty good chicken sandwich. It's going to be within a standard deviation that I can appreciate and is always going to be good. And I'm going to like what I get. And if I'm on the run and I'm not going to try that sandwich till I'm sitting on the plane, I need to know that it's going to be good. It's going to be consistent. And that's why I go there, because the others I don't necessarily trust to get there every single time. So the thing about the whole idea of inconsistency and this cursed consistency is that it really does put doubt in customers' minds. It is about those processes, those cleanliness, that presentation, that tone, those small deviations in those every single day that a lot of brands struggle with. That's what chips away at trust. And trust is the cornerstone of every relationship, including customer relationships. So you've got to fix that training there, and you've got to fix that accountability if you're a leader, because consistency is driven by folks paying attention to what's going on every day in the business. And that's the only way to get there. It is leaders on the ground training the right things, making sure there are processes and guidebooks and all kinds of things in play to drive those outcomes, and then being there in the moment and making sure that it's happening, following up and coaching, celebrating when it's right, coaching when it's not, and keeping people on track. It doesn't just happen. This is a big deal. And that's why this section is probably the longest of the 5. Because consistency is such a killer if you don't get it there, because that is a driver for your customer experience and what's going to keep people coming back. So you want to make sure that you've got those guidebooks. You want to make sure that you're doing that training, whether you're scaling it virtually, whether you're doing it in person. How are you putting your chicken sandwich together? What is your chicken sandwich with a widget, the product, the service? Do people know how to do it well, and how to do it consistently? And is there anybody watching to make sure that they do? If you do that, and then if you reward the consistency and reward those who are high performers, you're going to really show that matters to you, because you're there keeping an eye on it, you're inspecting what's going on, and you're making sure that people know what your expectations are. And then you can celebrate them when they get it right. And then finally, let's talk about the customer journey from hell. This is really the ultimate horror story. It's when the experience feels endless, when it feels full of traps. It's sort of going back to this idea earlier we talked about processes, but it's really about making sure that your team knows what it means to be your customer. It's really all about making sure that you understand your customer. And that is such a huge thing. And so often organizations, they don't understand what their customer is trying to accomplish. They don't understand what their customer wants. They don't listen to them when they've got a concern or a complaint or an idea. And then they just sort of go on like there's no customer there. They just run the plays they want to play. And that's not the way to do this. This is thinking about things from outside in, from the customer perspective, and not inside out from the business perspective. This is very much a CX principle. If you're a CX practitioner, I'm preaching to the choir, as my grandma would have said. But it is about looking at what it means to be your customer, understanding what they're trying to do, and then taking that journey through your business. So when you understand your customer, you know their habits, you know their emotions, you know their pain points, you know the questions and problems they have along the way. And again, you can make sure that it is as easy as possible to do business with you. And it's also about making sure that as you survey your customers, as you get that feedback, that you act on what you hear. When feedback is ignored, customers just believe nobody's listening. And when they don't think anybody's listening, they stop talking. And so that is that communication loop you want, because as you develop relationships with your customers, as you develop that loyalty with your customers, they have to know that you're listening, that you care about what they have to say, and that you're taking action on it. So what I suggest that everybody does here is make sure that you are mapping your customer journey. Now, this is something we do for folks all over the country, all over the world, helping people look at their customers and look at their journey or their path through their business. Where is it easy? Where is it hard? Where can we sand off some rough edges? Where is it too complicated? And we create what's called a customer journey map. And we can really look at that. It could be a customer, could be a guest, could be a consumer, whatever kind of organization you have. From the time a customer discovers you, till the time a guest walks in your front door, till the time they leave and recommend you and think about coming back again, what is that path? What is that path to do business with you? And is it a compelling path? Is it an easy path? And do they get what they need at the end in a way that makes them feel understood and valued? That's what matters. I've said that a couple of times, because this whole haunted horror story is all about making sure your customers never feel ghosted and that they feel like you're in it with them, that you're in their corner and you're there for them. So folks, if you're enjoying this show, and I sure hope you are, please scroll on down, leave 5 stars, say something nice, share it with your friends, subscribe, help keep Customer Service Academy one of the top podcasts in the world for customer service and customer experience. Thank you so much. We absolutely appreciate you for all those great likes and comments and all the shares we get every single week. So as we come into the finish line here, there you have it. These are the 5 terrifying hospitality mistakes that can turn your service into a horror show. The ghosted guest, this whole idea of Team Zombie, the processes that are haunted, the cursed consistency, and finally, the customer service journey from hell. When you think about this, they are pretty scary things, and they can put your competition ahead of you, so you don't want any of this stuff to get in the way of building customer loyalty and relationships. But here's the good news. Every one of these nightmares has a fix, and I shared them with you throughout the show today. Because what we don't want is your customer service to be a horror show, because that will drive your customers away. So think about that. Personalizing things for your customer and understanding them, empowering your team, simplifying those standards, and really making sure that you can turn horror into harmony. That's going to be how you drive results, because the ultimate winner is going to be your customer and also your business results. So I really appreciate you joining me for this spooky haunted edition of Customer Service Academy. Yes, I know, a little bit tongue-in-cheek and a little bit weird this week, but you know what? I want to have a little bit of fun, but also make sure we got to talk about some things that can help you drive results in your business. Because it all comes back to the fact that we are deep into Q4 at this point. We are still in the middle of the Great Service Comeback. And as the year starts to close, people are making buying decisions as you go into 2026 quarter one and into January. This is decision time. So people are starting to think about renegotiating contracts. Where are they going to spend their money? What are they going to do, in the new year? They're thinking about buying things for Christmas and the holidays. So there's a lot going on, and everything that you're trying to accomplish for 2025, you're down to really less than 90 days right now to make that happen. And let's face it, with the holidays, you probably got 45 days to really get out there and crush it. But there's still time, and you can still do it if you put in the time and effort and keep your customers at the center of everything you do, because that's just the way that we do things around here. So remember, if you need help with your customer journey mapping, your customer understanding, reach out. We can absolutely help, and we are happy to do so. So folks, that is our show. Until next time, I've been Tony Johnson, your customer experience speaker, consultant, and trainer, reminding you to keep your customers at the center of everything you do, because that's where the most amazing things are possible. Thanks for tuning in. Happy Halloween, and I will talk to you next week.
This has been Customer Service Academy Radio with Tony Johnson. Tony is available to speak at your event, meeting, or workshop. Have a powerful customer-focused day.